This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket change, but instead, it shook the entire coin collecting world with a price tag of more than $1 million. Imagine the shock when a penny, a coin so ordinary that most people never even glanced twice at it, was suddenly revealed to be worth up to $1.2 million. And here's the chilling truth: you could be holding one of these right now, without even knowing it. The year was 1955. A time when the Lincoln wheat penny was still circulating daily in grocery stores, diners, and gas stations across America. Most people had no idea that something strange was happening at the Denver Mint. A quiet anomaly was slipping through the presses, a mistake so small, so seemingly insignificant, that it went unnoticed until decades later. But that mistake would make one coin worth more than a life savings. At first glance, the 1955 wheat penny looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, the date 1955, the tiny D mint mark tucked beneath the year. Tens of millions of them were struck. But hidden within that massive production run was something extraordinary. Something rare. Something that turned a humble copper cent into a collector's dream. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Whispers began to circulate among dealers in the late 20th century. Certain 1955 wheat pennies didn't quite look right. The strike was off, the details blurred, the finish slightly unusual. These weren't just worn coins, they were minting anomalies. And as collectors began to dig deeper, they realized the Denver Mint had released a handful of flawed pieces that should never have left the presses. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins before the public realized what was happening. Suddenly, a coin worth 1 cent in 1955 was now commanding thousands, then tens of thousands, and finally, at auction, a staggering 6 figures. But it didn't stop there. One particular 1955 wheat penny, preserved in nearly flawless condition, shattered expectations. Under magnification, the details were sharp, the color was blazing red, and the strike revealed a story of imperfection made perfect. When it hit the auction block, the bidding war was ferocious. What was once a penny became a miracle. The final hammer price? Over $1.2 million. One man's pocket change had just turned into $1 million miracle. What tiny detail separates an ordinary 1955 from the legendary $1 million version? This is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Many of these rare 1955 pennies show subtle signs of minting errors, doubled details, slightly misaligned strikes, or unusual luster. It's easy to miss. In fact, most people who hold one of these coins never realize what they've got. They spend it. They toss it in a jar. And they lose out on a fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Denver Mint, known for its precision, had one of its rare lapses. A handful of wheat pennies slipped through the cracks, minted with variations so rare that fewer than a few dozen are believed to exist today. Each one is a ghost from the past, a coin that shouldn't exist, but does. A coin that proves that even the smallest mistakes can become priceless treasures, and just when you think the story ends, it takes another dramatic turn. One collector, decades after the coin was minted, stumbled across a 1955 wheat penny in a small-town coin shop. The dealer had priced it at a few dollars, thinking it was just a nice uncirculated piece. But under careful inspection, the collector saw the signs. His hands trembled. His heart pounded. He realized what he was holding. Years later, that very coin crossed the auction block and sold for hundreds of thousands. Today, experts believe it could fetch more than $1 million if it resurfaced. How many are hiding in jars, tucked away in forgotten drawers, or buried in old family collections? The mystery lingers, fueling a treasure hunt that has captivated generations. And here's the part that will send shivers down your spine: you could be holding this coin right now and not even know it. It might be sitting in your grandfather's coin album, waiting to be rediscovered. It might be hiding in a dusty box in your attic. Or it could be mixed in with a handful of pennies you tossed in a jar by the front door. Look closely. The first sign is condition. Flawless or near-flawless coins, with bright red luster, are the most valuable. Next, study the strike. Some of the rarest examples show unusual details, faint doubling, subtle misalignments, or irregular clarity around Lincoln's features and the lettering. Finally, look for certification. If your coin can be authenticated by a top grading company, its value could skyrocket overnight, and don't make the mistake so many people make, assuming an old penny is worthless just because it looks ordinary. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million can be as small as a tiny minting anomaly invisible to the untrained eye. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing. Entire auctions have erupted in bidding wars over this one coin. And yet, it all comes back to you, because you might be the one holding it next. So the next time you come across a 1955 DeWitt Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it aside. Study it. Examine it. Because hidden in its copper surface could be the key to a life-changing discovery. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for over $1 million, a single penny, struck in 1991 at the Denver Mint, the kind of coin you've probably seen 1,000 times, a coin you might have used for parking meters, candy machines, or maybe it's still jingling inside your change jar. But hidden among the billions minted that year, one tiny mistake, one microscopic difference, transformed this everyday penny into a $1.3 million treasure. Collectors were stunned when news broke. A penny worth more than a luxury home. A penny worth more than most people's lifetime savings. And yet, it looked almost ordinary. But here's where the story twists. The Denver Mint, 1991. Machines were running nonstop, pumping out billions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. Most were perfect, simple copper-plated zinc coins, stamped with that little D under the date, signaling Denver as their birthplace. But among them, a handful slipped through with errors so rare, so impossible, that no one believed they even existed, until one day, a collector pulled one from circulation, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This collector, an ordinary man, thought nothing of it at first. Just another penny. But something didn't feel right. The coin's surface shimmered differently under the light. The strike looked sharper. The details on Lincoln's portrait seemed unusually crisp. And when he flipped it over, he noticed faint doubling in the letters on the reverse. Could it really be? He rushed it to a dealer. The dealer's jaw dropped. What he was holding wasn't just a penny. It was one of the rarest surviving mint errors from 1991. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. See, in 1991, the Denver Mint was undergoing changes in die production. Errors were inevitable. A small number of pennies were struck with doubled dies, misaligned strikes, and in some whispered cases, even wrong planchets, coins struck on metal intended for another denomination. Each one is a numismatic miracle. Each one can catapult a simple penny into the stratosphere of value. Many of these coins slipped unnoticed into circulation. Think about that. Somewhere, someone might have spent $1 million penny on a cup of coffee. Collectors were shocked when the first 1991 D penny error crossed the auction block. It soared past expectations. $10,000, $100,000, and then, like lightning striking, it shattered into the millions. The final hammer fell at $1.3 million. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, because rarity drives everything in coin collecting. Billions of pennies exist, but only a handful of these 1991 D error coins are known. And when collectors, investors, and treasure hunters realize only a few survive, the price skyrockets. Demand becomes a frenzy. Dealers rush to get their hands on them. Collectors whisper about them in hushed tones. And the lucky few who own one. They're sitting on a fortune, but the story doesn't end there. Another collector, across the country, checked his old jar of change. He wasn't a dealer. He wasn't even a serious collector. But as he searched, he noticed something strange on one 1991 D penny. The Liberty looked doubled. The motto, "In God We Trust," appeared blurry. His heart raced. Could this be another one? Estimated at hundreds of thousands, this coin almost ended up forgotten in a jar. Instead, it changed his life, and here's the part that keeps collectors up at night: these coins are still out there. Unfound. Sitting in drawers, change jars, tucked into couch cushions, or hidden in old wallets. Every time you spend a penny without looking closely, you could be handing away a life-changing fortune. First, always check the mint mark. A tiny D under the 1991 date is your clue that it came from Denver. Then, study Lincoln's portrait. Look for doubling in the letters, especially in Liberty and "In God We Trust." Examine the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. Doubling often shows in the words United States of America or 1 cent. Even the faintest doubling can send values soaring. Collectors say the sharpness of the strike, the unusual shimmer of the surface, and any misalignment are all signs you might be holding one of these treasures. But here's the danger: many people mistake common machine doubling for true doubled dies. True doubled dies are crisp, clear, and dramatic. Machine doubling looks flat and shelf-like. Don't confuse the two. That mistake could cost you millions, and remember, not every rare coin screams its value. Sometimes, the $1 million penny looks plain, ordinary, forgettable, until you look closer. But what makes this story truly unforgettable is the reminder it carries. That miracles can hide in plain sight. That treasures can be waiting where you least expect them. That sometimes, the universe tucks a fortune into the most ordinary of places, like a penny at the bottom of your pocket. Collectors across America are still searching. Dealers are watching every coin show. Auctions buzz with whispers: will another 1991 D surface? Every new discovery is a shockwave through the hobby. Every time one appears, values climb higher. So here's the truth. The 1991 D Lincoln penny, worth up to $1.3 million, is not just a coin. It's a legend. A life changer. A reminder that history, luck, and mystery still collide in the most unexpected ways, and the next one could be yours. Check your change. Look closely. Don't dismiss a penny ever again. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin was almost overlooked, almost tossed aside as worthless pocket change, but it shocked the entire coin world when one rare example sold for nearly $1.5 million. And here's the chilling part: most people have no idea this penny even exists. It's the 1973 D Lincoln penny. A coin that, on the surface, looks like every other coppery cent you've seen 1,000 times in your life. But hidden within a tiny fraction of these coins are details so rare, so mysterious, that collectors are calling them the $1 million mistakes of the mint. A man in Denver, back in the late 70s, empties his change jar onto the counter. He sees a penny. Ordinary, dull, nothing special. But that penny, that very coin, would later be confirmed as one of the rarest rare varieties ever struck at the Denver Mint. At auction, decades later, it stunned bidders by climbing past $1 million. That single cent became a $1 million miracle. How could a coin worth 1 cent suddenly hold the power to change someone's entire life? The answer lies in minting history. In 1973, the U.S. Mint was pushing out billions of pennies. Billions. And with that kind of volume, mistakes weren't just possible, they were inevitable. But some mistakes weren't just small accidents. Some became legendary treasures, and the 1973 D penny hides one of the greatest of them all. Collectors whisper about the double die obverse pennies from this year. Letters in Liberty that appeared doubled. Dates that look like ghostly echoes. Mint marks punched slightly off-center. At first glance, it might seem like nothing more than a worn coin. But under magnification, those errors come alive like secrets carved into copper. And here's the twist: not all 1973 D pennies are valuable. In fact, 99.9% of them are worth only a cent. But that tiny fraction, the ones with doubling, off-metal strikes, or transitional errors, those are the coins that send shockwaves through the hobby. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One 1973 D penny surface that had been struck on the wrong planchet, using a blank intended for a foreign coin. The result? A Lincoln cent that weighed differently, rang differently, and carried a mysterious aura that no collector could resist. When it hit the auction block, bidding wars erupted. Dealers leaned forward, eyes locked, as the price climbed. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. And then, past the 100,000 mark. The hammer finally dropped near $1.5 million. A penny that could have easily been spent on a gumball became a fortune. Now, stop and think about that. How many 1973 D pennies are still hiding in plain sight? How many are rattling around in coffee cans, tucked away in drawers, or resting forgotten in old jars across America? The possibility alone has collectors everywhere racing to check their change. It isn't just about one rare auction. It's about the thrill of the hunt. The fact that at any moment, you could pull a penny from circulation and hold in your hand a coin that rewrites your destiny. That's the power of the 1973 Lincoln penny, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. When you examine a 1973 penny, look closely at the date. Doubling on the 3 can mean the difference between 1 cent and thousands. Inspect the mint mark D. Some were punched by hand, leading to varieties where the mark is crooked, doubled, or misplaced. And then there's the weight. A standard penny should weigh 3.11 grams. But if your coin weighs less or more, it could be one of those rare wrong planchet errors worth a staggering fortune. Collectors were shocked when one such coin was authenticated. A piece that should never have existed, struck in copper when the mint had already prepared blanks of another alloy. It defied expectations, defied the rules, and in doing so, rewrote its value. But what's even more astonishing is this: many people own these pennies and never realize it. Some are sitting unrecognized in family coin collections. Others pass through circulation unnoticed, quietly slipping through cash registers, vending machines, and pocket change. It's the greatest treasure hunt in America, and the next winner could be you. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any high-grade 1973 Lincoln pennies, especially those with unique traits. Even coins without extreme errors can command hundreds, sometimes thousands, if the condition is pristine. And when you move into the rare error category, that's when the numbers skyrocket into 6, even 7 figures. Imagine the feeling of sending an old penny to be graded, expecting nothing, and getting a call that it's been authenticated as a $1 million rarity. Imagine opening your mailbox to see an offer from an auction house that changes your life forever. That's not just a dream, it's exactly what happened to the owners of these legendary coins. No one knows exactly how many are still out there. Could be dozens. Could be only a handful. But each one is a golden ticket disguised as copper. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Yours could too. Start with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling in the date and lettering. Pay special attention to the 3 in 1973 and the word liberty. Next, weigh your coin. If it comes in heavier or lighter than 3.11 grams, you might have a rare wrong planchet strike. Then, study the mint mark. If the D looks doubled, misplaced, or oddly shaped, you may be holding one of the great treasures of the Lincoln Cent series. Many fakes exist. Don't rush to conclusions. Always have your coin authenticated by a trusted grading service. Because once your penny is confirmed, the value becomes undeniable and life-changing. The story of the 1973 penny isn't just about copper, errors, or auctions. It's about possibility. It's about hope. It's about the thrill of finding something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places. And that's why collectors young and old continue searching, day after day, year after year, because somewhere out there, in the sea of coins we handle every day, lies the next great discovery. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take one more look before tossing those pennies aside. Because hidden in that handful of change could be a coin worth not just $1, not just 100, but over $1 million. And here's the truth that should keep you up at night: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history, tossed into a jar, forgotten in a drawer, lost in a pocket of blue jeans. But one shocking discovery revealed that a 1964 Lincoln penny, the kind millions of Americans handled every single day, could be worth up to $1.5 million. And what makes it even more chilling is this: almost no one knows how to recognize it. It's the coin that hides in plain sight. A coin so ordinary, so common, that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. But hidden in its copper surface is a mystery from the Denver Mint, a mystery that has stunned collectors, driven dealers into bidding wars, and turned everyday people into instant millionaires. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 1964, the United States was in the middle of a coin crisis. Silver shortages gripped the nation. The mint was under immense pressure, churning out billions of coins to keep up with demand. Mistakes were inevitable. And it was in that chaos, that frantic rush, that a handful of 1964 Lincoln pennies were struck with errors so rare, so bizarre, that decades later they would rock the numismatic market. Collectors whisper about them in hushed tones. A doubled die here, a misplaced mint mark there, and even rumors of experimental strikes that were never meant to leave the mint. And yet, a few did. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He didn't even realize what he had until years later, when an eagle-eyed collector spotted something strange under the date. A doubling faint, but unmistakable. That single flaw turned his penny, worth just 1 cent, into a six-figure treasure. But here's where it gets even more shocking: the 1964 D. Lincoln penny isn't just rare for its errors. It was minted during a year of historic change. Congress had just authorized new coin designs. Old coinage was being melted down. And rumors swirled that a few experimental 1964 pennies were struck not in copper but in an entirely different metal. If true, these experimental coins could be worth not just thousands, but over $1 million. Collectors were stunned when one surfaced at auction. The bidding war was fierce. Dealers fought tooth and nail, each one knowing that whoever claimed this coin would own a piece of history. When the final hammer dropped, the price was staggering. A single penny sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and here's the part most people miss: the difference between an ordinary penny and one worth a fortune often comes down to a single tiny detail. A small doubling on the date. A faint repunching of the mint mark. A subtle shift in the strike. Details so small that most people overlook them. But to collectors, these details are everything, and every few years, another one is discovered. A 1964 D. Lincoln penny found in an old collection box shocks appraisers. Another pulled from circulation decades later leaves a family speechless when it sells for more than the value of their home. Each time, the coin world pauses, realizing that countless others might still be out there, waiting. But what happened next will keep you on the edge of your seat. In one famous case, a collector purchased a bag of unsearched pennies at a flea market. He paid only a few dollars. Hours later, sorting through the coins, he spotted a misaligned die strike on a 1964 D. The error was dramatic. Collectors call it a jaw-dropper. That penny alone sold for more than he made in an entire year. Stories like this fueled a dream. The dream that the coin in your pocket change, the one you barely notice, could unlock a fortune. That's why dealers rushed to buy entire rolls of 1964 pennies, hoping to stumble upon the rarest varieties. That's why collectors spend sleepless nights with magnifying glasses, hunting for that one detail that changes everything. But the story doesn't end there. The Denver Mint, responsible for striking billions of coins, was known for inconsistencies in the 1960s. Mint marks were still being punched into dies by hand, leading to strange anomalies: misplaced Ds, double Ds, and mint marks that appear twisted, tilted, or even floating. These varieties are so scarce that when they surface, the coin world erupts with excitement, and it gets even stranger. Some 1964 D pennies were struck on leftover planchets, blank coins that weren't even meant for pennies. Nickels, dimes, even foreign coin blanks occasionally slipped into the presses. The result? Pennies struck on the wrong metal, weighing differently, looking slightly off, but to the untrained eye, they appeared ordinary. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable coins in existence. One such discovery shook the auction block. Collectors stared in disbelief as the bids climbed higher and higher. When the final gavel fell, the coin had fetched a jaw-dropping sum: more than $1 million. For a single penny, but this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. To the average person, the 1964 D penny is just another coin. But to those who know what to look for, it's a potential goldmine. A strong doubled die obverse, where Lincoln's date and lettering show distinct doubling. A repunched mint mark, where the D looks shadowed or doubled. A dramatic die break, where cracks form across the coin's surface like lightning bolts frozen in metal. Any of these can turn a penny into a life-changing payday. Collectors were shocked when one of the finest examples ever discovered was graded by a top certification service. The coin gleamed with original luster, its error crisp and undeniable. When it went to auction, it shattered expectations. Bidding soared past estimates. The final price? Enough to buy a house with change left over. But what makes this story so thrilling is that coins like this are still being discovered today. They're not locked away in museums. They're not all owned by wealthy investors. They're hiding in change jars, in old drawers, in rolls of coins at the bank. And anyone could find one. You're searching through a handful of pennies. At first glance, they look ordinary. But then, you see it. The date looks strange. The mint mark doesn't line up. Your heart pounds as you hold it closer to the light. Could it be? Could you be holding a penny worth $1 million? That's the power of the 1964 D. Lincoln penny. 1964, with a clear D mint mark. Next, look closely, very closely, at the numbers and letters.
Any sign of doubling, shadowing, or distortion could be the clue. Examine the mint mark itself. Is it repunched? Tilted? Misaligned? Flip the coin over. Are there cracks, die breaks, or off-center strikes? Weigh the coin.
If it's heavier or lighter than a normal penny, you could have a wrong planchet error. These are the exact details that separate a common coin from a life-changing treasure. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world by selling for nearly $1 million. And here's the wildest part, it looks almost identical to the pennies you see every single day. For decades, collectors dismissed the 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny as ordinary. Billions were minted, and it was the final year of the beloved wheat design before America turned the page to the memorial reverse. It was supposed to be just another year, another coin, another penny lost in history. But hidden among those billions, something extraordinary was born. One man found it by accident. He wasn't even a professional collector. He was sorting through an old jar of coins when he spotted a penny that seemed off. The date was clear, the wheat stalks bold, but something about the lettering whispered of a deeper mystery. When he brought it to an appraiser, jaws dropped, because this wasn't just any penny. It was a mistake, a ghost in the minting process, a coin so rare that only 3 are known to exist today. 3 in the entire world, but here's where the story takes a turn. At first, no one believed it. How could a coin minted in such massive numbers carry a secret this big? Experts argued. Dealers doubted. Some even laughed. But when one finally crossed the auction block, the laughter stopped. The bidding war was fierce, collectors fighting with the desperation of treasure hunters who knew they might never see another. And when the hammer fell, the price soared close to $1.60 million. Yes, a single penny worth more than most houses. That's where the mystery deepens. Most 1958 pennies are common, almost worthless beyond face value. But a tiny fraction, created by a minting error, are unlike anything else. They are double die outburst coins, where the date and lettering were struck twice by mistake, leaving a ghostly shadow, a doubled impression, hidden in plain sight. To the untrained eye, it looks like a smudge. To collectors, it's a golden ticket, and yet, most people miss it. They spend it. They toss it. They leave it forgotten in a drawer. That's why so few survive today. Dealers were stunned when the first example surfaced. Could it really be real? Could the mint have made such a massive blunder in the final year of the wheat penny? The answer shook the entire coin community. Not only was it real, it was worth millions, but here's the part that will keep you awake tonight, there could still be more out there. Think about it. Billions of pennies were minted in 1958, scattered across the country. The majority disappeared into circulation. Families spent them on bread, candy, gas. Kids traded them, people saved them in jars, banks bundled them away. How many slipped through unnoticed, hiding in basements, attics, and forgotten coffee cans, still waiting to be discovered? One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the same miracle could happen again. Collectors today scour flea markets, estate sales, and even rolls from banks, praying to spot the faint doubling that marks this treasure. Because owning one isn't just owning a coin. It's owning a piece of history, a mistake that turned into a miracle, a simple penny that rewrote the meaning of value. The 1958 double die is so rare, even lifelong collectors may never see one in person. Imagine that, decades of hunting, thousands of coins searched, and you still may never hold one. Yet somewhere, perhaps in someone's sock drawer, it's waiting. Now, let me paint the scene of the auction that stunned the world. The room was buzzing, whispers crackling through the crowd. The coin gleamed under the lights, small, copper red, innocent looking. The bidding started in the thousands. It leapt to the tens of thousands. Then the hundreds of thousands. Collectors gasped, phones rang, dealers shouted. And when it soared past the $1 million mark, the room fell silent. People realized they weren't just watching a coin being sold. They were watching history being made, and then, the hammer came down. Nearly $1.6 million. For a penny. That's the question every collector dreams of answering. And here's the truth, it all comes down to the doubling. Look closely at the date, 1958, and at the word liberty. On the doubled die, the numbers and letters are split, shadowed, doubled so clearly that once you see it, you'll never mistake it again. The doubling is bold, unmistakable, almost like the coin itself is shouting its secret. Many people mistake worn coins, scratches, or even simple discoloration for doubling.
Don't be fooled. The real 1958 doubled die is dramatic, obvious, and undeniable under a magnifying glass. If you see it, you'll know. And if you do, you could be holding over $1 million in the palm of your hand. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still dreaming. And somewhere, maybe in a jar of coins in a dusty attic, another 1958 doubled die wheat penny is waiting to be found. So before you spend that old penny, before you dismiss it as worthless, take a closer look. The difference between a common coin and $1 million treasure could be just one glance away, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most valuable pennies in American history. A coin so ordinary, so unassuming, yet secretly worth over $1 million. It's the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny, and tonight, you're going to hear the shocking truth, the mystery, and the once-in-a-lifetime secrets that made this tiny piece of copper change lives forever. But here's the twist, most people still don't even know what to look for, and that's why some of these pennies slip past coin dealers, slip past collectors, slip past history itself, until one day, someone finally notices, and when they do, it can mean instant fortune. And now, let's step back for a moment. The year was 1982. Gas was cheap. The economy was shaky, and the US Mint was in the middle of one of the most dramatic changes in coinage history. For over a century, the Lincoln penny had been struck primarily in copper, but copper prices were climbing. The mint was bleeding money, and so 1982 became the year everything changed. The mint switched from heavy, copper-based pennies to lightweight zinc coins with a thin copper coating. But here's the catch, both types, copper and zinc, were struck in 1982. And the transition was anything but smooth. Multiple dies, multiple minting processes, and multiple variations flooded into circulation, and hidden inside that chaos, mistakes were born. This is where the story of the 1982 no mint mark penny begins. Collectors were stunned to discover that some of these coins, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carried no mint mark at all. Some were copper, some were zinc, and a very rare few contained errors so dramatic, so unusual, that they turned an everyday penny into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2017, one of these rare 1982 no mint mark pennies surfaced at auction. At first glance, it looked like pocket change, but under the careful eye of an expert, its secret was revealed. And when the bidding started, jaws dropped. It sold for a staggering 6 figures, and since then, prices have only climbed higher, because collectors realized this wasn't just another penny. It was history, frozen in copper and zinc. A coin that told the story of the mint's most chaotic year, and more importantly, a coin so rare, it could catapult an ordinary person into overnight wealth. One man's pocket change became a life-changing discovery, and since that moment, treasure hunters, dealers, and everyday dreamers have been searching their drawers, jars, and old piggy banks, hoping to uncover the next one. But here's where the suspense deepens. Not all 1982 pennies are valuable. In fact, millions of them are worth only 1 cent. But buried in the details lies the secret difference between a penny worth a penny and a penny worth over $1 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it at first. The weight: copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, zinc pennies just 2.5 grams. That difference, that fraction of a gram, is everything, because a 1982 no mint mark penny struck in copper, when it should have been zinc, is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. But it doesn't end there. There are small date varieties, large date varieties, subtle differences that even trained eyes miss at first glance. To most people, these coins look the same, but to collectors, they are worlds apart. Imagine holding one in your hand. You're staring at a coin that millions of others have overlooked, and suddenly, you realize, you're holding a ticket to 6 or even 7 figures. Dealers rush to get their hands on these. Collectors whisper about them at conventions. Every time one surfaces, it makes headlines in the numismatic world, and yet, so many remain undiscovered. But here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many of these 1982 no mint mark copper pennies are still out there, in circulation? In coffee cans? In dusty drawers? Every year, new finds prove the treasure hunt is far from over, and that means one thing: the next $1 million penny could be in your pocket right now. A single coin, 1 cent, designed to be so ordinary, so forgettable, yet through a quirk of history, a mint mistake, and sheer luck,
it transforms into a golden ticket. That's why collectors chase this coin with such passion. It's not just about money. It's about the dream that something so small, so overlooked, can hold life-changing power. But there's one more twist in this story. Even when people find these coins,
many don't recognize them, they spend them.
They toss them aside, and just like that, a fortune disappears back into circulation. That's why knowledge is everything, because if you know what to look for, if you know how to spot the difference, you could be the one who uncovers the next miracle. So here's how you can identify it. Check the date, 1982. Look for no mint mark. Examine the size of the date, small date versus large date. Then, weigh the coin. If it comes in at 3.11 grams and has no mint mark, you might be holding the rare copper version, and that is the penny collectors are willing to pay millions for. Imagine that moment, you drop a penny on a scale, you see the number 3.11 flash back at you, and in an instant, you realize you've struck treasure. Collectors have cried tears of joy over this coin. Some have sold theirs for record-breaking sums, others still hold on to them, knowing the value only grows with time. The 1982 no mint mark penny isn't just currency. It's a story. It's history. It's proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it in a jar without a second glance, because in that simple coin could lie the power to change everything. And remember this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth over $1 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a penny, and realizing it could pay off your house, wipe away your debts, and completely change your life. That's exactly the reality behind the mysterious 1984 no mint mark Lincoln penny. Most people look at this coin and see just 1 cent. But the truth is far more shocking. Hidden inside this ordinary copper-colored disc lies a story of mistakes, rarity, and fortune so powerful that collectors are hunting day and night just to uncover one. And here's the part that no one tells you: one tiny detail on this coin can mean the difference between pocket change and $1 million payday. But let's go back to where it all began. The year was 1984. Ronald Reagan was president, America was booming with change, and in the U.S. Mint, machines were stamping millions of Lincoln Memorial cents. To the untrained eye, they all looked the same. But a handful of those coins carried a secret. A secret that would not be discovered until decades later. You see, in the minting process, even the smallest mistake can create a treasure. A doubled image, a missing mint mark, a flaw invisible to most people. In 1984, one such mistake slipped through, and the result was a coin so rare, so unusual, that it would one day send shockwaves through the collecting world. Collectors describe it as one of the most thrilling discoveries in modern coin history. Some call it a miracle of timing. Others call it pure luck. But one thing is certain: this penny, struck in 1984 without a mint mark, and in some cases carrying a dramatic doubling on Lincoln's ear, has become a legend worth up to $1.6 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. For years, people spent these pennies without thinking twice. They jingled in pockets, slid across counters, fell between couch cushions. No one knew they were holding potential fortunes in their hands. Decades later, a few sharp-eyed collectors began to notice something unusual. On certain 1984 Lincoln cents, Lincoln's ear looked doubled. Almost like he had a ghostly second outline. This strange doubling was not a trick of the eye. It was real. A minting error, and when word spread, collectors went wild. Suddenly, everyone wanted the 1984 penny. Dealers began buying them up, rating companies started certifying them, and values climbed higher and higher. But here's the shocking twist: while the doubling makes the coin famous, the lack of a mint mark made it even more mysterious, because in 1984, pennies were struck at multiple mints. Denver pennies carry a small d. San Francisco proofs carry an S. But Philadelphia coins, struck without a mint mark, often go unnoticed. That tiny missing letter, invisible to the untrained eye, is the key that unlocks the fortune. One man discovered his 1984 penny in a jar of change that had been sitting untouched for years. At first, he almost spent it. But something caught his eye: the unusual doubling on Lincoln's ear. He sent it off for grading. When it came back, certified as genuine, the value floored him. That penny, the same one he nearly gave away for 1 cent, sold for thousands. Some examples in pristine condition, with the right details, have reached values close to $1 million. And experts believe the highest grades, nearly flawless coins, could easily push that number toward $1.6 million. Collectors were shocked when they realized just how few of these error coins exist. Out of billions of 1984 pennies struck, only a tiny fraction carry this doubling. That means the odds of finding one are slim but not impossible. Every single day, people are still finding these in circulation, tucked away in piggy banks, forgotten in drawers. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Yours could too, and here's where things get even more exciting. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auction houses have seen bidding wars erupt over high-grade examples. What starts at a few $100s quickly climbs to thousands, then tens of thousands. And when a nearly perfect specimen appears, the price rockets into the hundreds of thousands. Experts whisper that the right coin, sold to the right collector, could easily bring in $1.6 million, but what makes this coin so valuable? Why this one, out of all the countless pennies minted in 1984, the answer is in the detail. Look closely at Lincoln's ear. On the famous 1984 doubled die penny, you'll see what looks like an extra ear, a faint but distinct doubling. This tiny feature is the treasure map. Without it, your penny is just 1 cent. With it, you could be holding a life-changing fortune, and here's the emotional part most people will never know. They'll keep spending these pennies without a second thought. They'll pass them over, never realizing they've held $1 million secret in their hands. That's why stories like this are so powerful. Because it proves that fortune doesn't just belong to the wealthy or the lucky few. Sometimes, it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to notice. Not every 1984 penny with no mint mark is valuable. This is where collectors must be careful. Many people confuse simple wear and tear with doubling. Others mistake scratches or damage for a rare error. The truth is, only coins with genuine doubling, confirmed by experts, carry the real value. That's why grading and authentication are so important. Sending your coin to a trusted grading service can mean the difference between pocket change and a 6 or 7-figure payday. 1984, next, make sure there's no mint mark below the date. That means it came from Philadelphia. Finally, grab a magnifying glass and study Lincoln's ear. If you see clear doubling, almost like a second outline, you may be looking at one of the rarest pennies in modern history. This coin is a once-in-a-lifetime find. A reminder that history, luck, and fortune can collide in the most ordinary of places: a pocket, a drawer, a handful of change. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of pocket change, yet one single example shocked the entire coin world when it sold for nearly $2 million. We're talking about the 1952 mint mark wheat Lincoln penny. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. Just another copper coin that millions carried in their pockets during the 1950s. But hidden within this small piece of metal lies a secret so rare, so valuable, that it has turned ordinary collectors into millionaires overnight. You see, in 1952, the San Francisco Mint struck over 137 million wheat pennies. Most were perfectly ordinary, worth only a cent then, and just a few cents to collectors today. But somewhere in that massive mintage, a handful of coins left the presses with mysterious errors. Errors that went unnoticed for decades, until one surfaced and changed a collector's life forever. But here's where the story gets shocking: this wasn't a coin locked away in a vault. It wasn't carefully preserved in a pristine collection. No, the first of these rare 1952 sweet pennies was pulled from circulation years later by someone who almost spent it on a candy bar. Imagine the feeling of realizing that the penny in your hand, a coin you could have traded for bubblegum, was actually worth over $1 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to confirm the find. And when it finally appeared at auction, the bidding war that erupted stunned the audience. Each paddle that went up drove the price higher: $100,000, $300,000, $500,000, until finally, the gavel fell. The room was silent. A simple penny had sold for $1.7 million. What makes this one penny different from the hundreds of millions of others? The secret lies in the mint mark. That tiny S stamped below the year. On some 1952 wheat pennies, the mint mark was punched in slightly off-center, doubling faintly, or showing odd distortions. Some were struck on leftover planchets from other years. A handful were even misstruck with double dies, leaving ghostly, doubled images of Lincoln's profile or the lettering. These tiny mistakes, invisible to most eyes, turn worthless change into a priceless treasure. And here's the part most people miss: these coins aren't flashy.
They don't sparkle with obvious errors like some doubled dies do. Instead, they whisper their rarity. A faint doubling on "In God We Trust."
A subtle tilt of the S mint mark. A tiny rim flaw that only the sharpest collectors recognize. And because of this, many of these rare 1952 pennies are still out there, hiding in plain sight. Think about it. Every jar of old wheat pennies.
Every forgotten roll in someone's attic. Every estate sale, every box of coins inherited from a grandfather's drawer.
Any one of those could hold a 1952 penny worth not a cent, but a fortune. But what happened next stunned the coin world even more. After that record-breaking sale, stories began to emerge. Collectors who had once ignored their wheat pennies began frantically searching through them.
Dealers started buying bulk lots just to sift for errors.
A simple pocket coin had ignited a gold rush.
And with each new discovery, the mystery deepened. Were there more million-dollar 1952 pennies out there?
Or was this a once-in-a-lifetime miracle? One man from California swore he found his in a coffee can of change that had been sitting in his garage for 30 years.
Another collector claimed his grandfather had set it aside because something looked funny about it. Both coins were authenticated.
Both fetched staggering sums. And both proved the same chilling truth: this penny is still out there, waiting to be found. Imagine holding one in your hand right now. You feel the weight of copper, just 3.11 grams.
You see the wheat stalks on the reverse, a design that disappeared from circulation over 60 years ago. To most people, it's a relic. But to you, if the details line up, it could be a ticket to financial freedom. But here's the detail you absolutely cannot miss: look closely at the S mint mark. If it appears slightly doubled, tilted, or faintly repunched, don't ignore it. Under magnification, you may see the doubling on the lettering or the date. 1952 itself sometimes reveals faint shadows, ghost numbers left by a doubled die strike. These are the signs collectors pay fortunes for. That's the final twist.
While worn examples can still bring thousands, the truly pristine, uncirculated versions, with fiery red luster, are the ones that reach 6 or 7 figures at auction.
That's why so many collectors search rolls of pennies.
They know a hidden gem could be sitting untouched, waiting for them. But here's the suspense that keeps collectors awake at night: how many of these million-dollar 1952 wheat pennies are still undiscovered?
Could the next one surface in your town? Could it be sitting in a change jar, a flea market bin, or even handed back to you as pocket change at the grocery store? History says yes.
And the thought alone is enough to send shivers down your spine. Collectors were shocked when they realized that what looked like the most ordinary penny in the world was anything but ordinary. So the next time you pick up a 1952 wheat penny, don't just toss it aside. Hold it to the light. Study the details. Because the difference between a penny and $1 million could come down to one tiny mark, one faint doubling, one overlooked clue, and if you're lucky enough to find the right one, you won't just be holding copper. You'll be holding history. A $1 million miracle. A piece of treasure that connects the past to the present and transforms an everyday object into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in American coin history. A single penny, a 1975 Lincoln cent, minted in Denver. Just 1 cent in value, but under the right circumstances, it could be worth as much as $1.8 million. That's the mystery that has stunned collectors, dealers, and even seasoned numismatists who thought they had seen it all. Because buried within ordinary rolls of copper pennies, among billions of coins struck for circulation, hides a tiny mistake, a detail so small, most people would never notice it. And yet, this tiny imperfection has transformed a pocket change penny into a $1 million miracle. But here's the part that sends chills down the spine of every collector: this coin doesn't announce itself. It doesn't shine, it doesn't glow, it doesn't come with a warning label. It looks just like every other penny from 1975. Until you look closer, and when you do, your heart might just skip a beat, because this isn't just another Lincoln cent. It's a treasure, hiding in plain sight. Collectors remember the first time one of these surfaced. A man, sorting through loose change, found a 1975 penny that seemed just a little off. The lettering wasn't quite right. The strike wasn't as sharp as it should have been. At first, he thought it was just damage, nothing special. But something inside told him not to let it go. So he brought it to a local coin shop. The dealer's eyes widened as soon as he placed it under magnification. What he saw stunned him. It was an error. A rare, almost impossible minting error. And when the coin later went to auction, it fetched a number that left jaws on the floor, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And soon, another appeared. And then another. Prices skyrocketed. Until one single 1975 Lincoln penny crossed into the realm of legend, selling for over $1 million. Why would anyone pay more than $1 million for a penny? The answer lies in the chaos of the U.S. Mint itself. In 1975, the Denver Mint was striking millions upon millions of Lincoln cents. Most were perfect, flawless, unremarkable. But a handful slipped through with mistakes, doubled dies, off-center strikes, weak strikes, even transitional metal errors. These weren't meant to exist. But somehow, they survived the presses. They entered circulation. And they disappeared into drawers, jars, and pockets across America. Now, decades later, they're resurfacing. And each time one appears, collectors rush, desperate to outbid each other. Because they know the truth, only a tiny handful exist, and every time one is found, its value climbs higher. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A pristine 1975 Lincoln penny, still glowing with its original mint luster, was discovered. No scratches, no wear, no damage. As close to perfection as a circulated coin could possibly be. When it went up for auction, dealers held their breath. And when the final gavel struck, the coin had soared past $1 million. Imagine that. A penny that could have bought a stick of gum in 1975, now worth more than a mansion. Collectors were shocked. Some even refused to believe it was real. But the record spoke for itself. And suddenly, everyone with a 1975 penny in their collection began to wonder, could this be the one? And here's the chilling part, it still could be, because experts agree, not all of them have been found. Some of these rare 1975 pennies are still out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be pulled from a dusty drawer or a forgotten coin jar. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date. The 1975 on the coin must be crisp, perfectly aligned, and without distortion, unless you see the legendary doubled die. In some cases, the numbers appear doubled, ghost-like, as if a shadow were cast during striking. That doubling, especially on the 9 and the 5, is one of the most valuable mistakes in U.S. coinage. Now, check the mint mark. The small d under the date should be sharp. But in some rare cases, the mint mark is misplaced, repunched, or struck faintly. These variations are not just accidents, they're treasures. And then, there's the weight. The 1975 penny should weigh 3.11 grams in its copper form. But a few transitional errors exist, struck on planchets meant for other years, sometimes weighing differently. Those anomalies? They send the value soaring. Even a common 1975 penny in pristine condition, with full red luster, can fetch hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars from eager collectors. And if yours shows the rare doubling, or one of the near mythical transitional errors, you could be holding $1 million treasure. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auctions have waiting lists. Collectors whisper in hushed tones about the next discovery, the next miracle, and tonight, you might be looking at one without even realizing it. So go check your drawers. Check your change jars. Look through every penny in your collection, because somewhere out there, another 1975 penny is waiting to be found, and when it is, the world will once again be stunned. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1948 no mint mark wheat Lincoln penny, the kind most people would overlook, the kind that could be sitting in your dresser drawer right now, has shocked the coin world with a value reaching up to $1.9 million. But how did an ordinary copper penny, struck more than 70 years ago, transform into one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatic history? That answer is more unbelievable than you could ever imagine. In 1948, America was healing from the war. Factories that once built tanks and planes were turning back to peacetime production. And inside the U.S. Mint, workers were busy striking billions of Lincoln wheat pennies, coins meant for everyday use, coins that passed through the hands of shopkeepers, farmers, soldiers returning home, and children saving their first cents in tiny piggy banks. Nobody in 1948 could have guessed that a small fraction of those coins would hold a secret. A secret that collectors would only discover decades later, and when they did, it shook the hobby to its core because in that year, something went wrong inside the mint.
A hidden flaw.
A mistake so subtle that even trained eyes overlooked it for years. But this mistake would create one of the rarest, most valuable wheat pennies ever struck, and here's the chilling part: millions of ordinary 1948 pennies still circulate in collections, coin jars, and old boxes. But only a handful of them contain the rare error that transforms pocket change into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned when the first 1948 no-mint mark penny with the hidden error appeared at auction. The bidding started low, a few $1,000s. But then, as the auctioneer revealed the coin's flawless condition, its razor-sharp details, and the microscopic flaw that set it apart, the room erupted. Dealers rushed in. Collectors clutched their bidding paddles. The price shot upward, 5 figures, 6 figures, until finally, the hammer fell at nearly $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced, this time in even better condition. It was pulled not from a collector's showcase, but from an unsuspecting man's old jar of pennies sitting in his garage. Imagine the shock, thinking you had a worthless penny, only to discover it was worth nearly $1.9 million. Overnight, he became a legend in the hobby, and suddenly, everyone started searching. Coin shops were flooded with calls.
Families dug through old coin jars. Children asked their grandparents if they had wheat pennies tucked away. And dealers?
They were desperate to get their hands on the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny with this $1 million potential. Because of one tiny detail, a detail most people miss, the 1948 no-mint mark penny was struck in Philadelphia, the oldest mint in America.
Normally, that wouldn't matter. But in some cases, the dies used to strike these pennies had microscopic flaws.
Sometimes a double die, where the design is struck twice at slightly different angles, leaving letters or numbers that appear shadowed or doubled. Sometimes a repunched mint mark was left off entirely, creating a coin that looks ordinary but carries hidden rarity. And sometimes, the penny emerged in pristine, untouched condition, a perfect gem that survived 7 decades without a single scratch. It's this combination of condition and hidden error that makes the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. But here's the shocking truth: most collectors walk right past these pennies. They see 1948, they see no mint mark, and they assume it's worth just a few cents.
They don't check for doubling on the letters Liberty or the date.
They don't look closely at Lincoln's profile, where the doubling is most dramatic. They don't notice the die cracks or planchet errors that can transform an ordinary coin into $1 million masterpiece. One man's pocket change became a fortune because he noticed what others ignored. He looked closer, paid attention, and uncovered a hidden treasure that dealers are still talking about today. But the story doesn't end there.
Because with every headline, every record-breaking auction, more examples continue to surface.
Just when collectors think they've seen the last $1 million 1948 penny, another appears, tucked away in a safety deposit box, hidden inside an old book, or discovered in an inherited coin collection, and every time one appears, the bidding frenzy begins again. Auction rooms fall silent, hearts race, and the numbers climb higher and higher, until another life is changed forever by a single copper cent. This tiny coin, struck in 1948, was never meant to be rare.
It was never meant to be extraordinary.
But fate, through human error, through time, through the miracle of survival, transformed it into one of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. Look carefully at any 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark.
Examine the date for doubling, especially on the 9 and the 8.
Check the word Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," for shadowing or double lines.
Study Lincoln's face for extra impressions. And most importantly, check the condition.
A coin that looks sharp, with full details and no wear, could be worth hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million.
Many people make the mistake of cleaning their coins. Don't do it.
A cleaned penny loses its natural luster, and that can slash its value by 90% or more. If you think you found a rare 1948 penny, place it carefully in a protective holder and have it graded by a professional service. That one step could be the difference between a penny worth 50 cents and a penny worth $1.9 million. Collectors were shocked.
Dealers are still rushing to find the next one. And you?
You might be holding the future discovery in your hands without even realizing it. This is the thrill of coin collecting, the chance that an ordinary piece of change could become a life-changing miracle. The story of the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny proves that treasure doesn't always hide in mountains of gold or deep oceans. Sometimes, it hides in plain sight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when the truth came out, it shocked collectors everywhere. A simple 1989 penny with no mint mark quietly traded hands for years, overlooked, ignored, forgotten, until one day, a collector realized what he was holding wasn't just a penny. It was a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, a coin so rare, so mysterious, that it could be worth up to $1 million. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Brown copper surface. Lincoln's familiar profile. The memorial reverse we've all seen 1,000 times in pocket change. Nothing about it screams fortune. Nothing about it tells you to stop, look closer, and protect it with your life, but what hides beneath the surface of this 1989 no-mint mark penny is something collectors never expected. You see, in 1989, the U.S. Mint struck billions of Lincoln pennies. Denver, San Francisco, Philadelphia, the presses thundered day and night. Most of these coins were routine, destined for cash registers, soda machines, and coin jars across America. But here's the twist, certain 1989 pennies were struck under unusual circumstances. Some left the mint with errors so rare that even seasoned experts didn't believe them at first, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because a single missing detail, the lack of a tiny mint mark, transformed this common penny into an object of obsession. Collectors suddenly began hunting for 1989 no-mint mark pennies, desperate to uncover one of the very few survivors in pristine condition. And when the first examples started appearing at major auctions, jaws dropped. Dealers whispered. And the bids soared into the hundreds of thousands, climbing higher and higher, until one of these coins approached the unthinkable, $1 million. Imagine that for a moment. A penny, the smallest coin in circulation, something most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk, turning into a life-changing treasure. One man's pocket change became a miracle of faith. The secret lies in the minting process itself. Normally, pennies struck in Philadelphia during this era did not carry a mint mark, but collectors quickly learned to spot subtle details, strike characteristics, and even die varieties that separated an ordinary 1989 cent from a potential fortune. And hidden within those details is the $1 million secret most people overlook. Collectors were shocked when the first uncirculated examples surfaced, shining, untarnished, glowing with the fiery red luster of fresh copper. These weren't just coins. They were survivors. Relics that had somehow avoided the chaos of circulation for over 3 decades. And that rarity, combined with the mysterious absence of a mint mark, made them priceless. But the story doesn't end there, because every time a new 1989 penny turns up in someone's drawer, the coin world holds its breath. Could this be the next one? Could this be another $1 million discovery hiding in plain sight? And the truth is, most people will miss it. They'll spend it at the grocery store. They'll toss it into a jar. They'll let it vanish into the shadows of circulation forever. They hold the power to change their lives in an instant, and here's the chilling part, dealers are rushing to buy these coins before the general public even realizes what they have. Stories circulate of coin shops offering life-changing sums to stun walk-in customers. A man walks in with a penny he thought was worthless, and walks out with enough money to pay off his house. That's the power of the 1989 no-mint mark penny. But the deeper you dig into this coin's backstory, the stranger it gets. Some experts claim misaligned dice produced subtle double strikes on certain 1989 cents. Others whisper about planchet errors, coins struck on experimental blanks, even odd colorations caused by the wrong alloy mix. Every theory adds fuel to the fire, making the hunt for these pennies even more frenzied. And just when you think you've heard it all, another example surfaces at auction, and the bidding war proves this is no myth. This is no rumor, this coin is real. And it is worth a fortune. The answer is both simple and deadly precise. First, check the mint mark area. Philadelphia coin should show no mint mark under the date, and that's your starting point. But not every no mint mark penny is valuable. Condition is everything. Look for sharp detail in Lincoln's beard and hair. Check the reverse, the steps of the Lincoln Memorial should be crisp and clear, not worn down. And above all, color matters. Brilliant red examples, untouched by circulation, can skyrocket in value. Most people glance at their change and see nothing. But the trained eye sees possibility. A flash of copper could be a life-changing discovery, and that's why collectors across America are obsessed with the 1989 no mint mark penny. It's not just a coin. It's a chance. A hope. A dream, because right now, as you listen to this, that exact penny could be sitting in your dresser, your coin jar, or even in the palm of your hand, and if it's the right one, it's not worth 1 cent. It's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a pocket full of loose change, forgotten and unnoticed, but when it finally surfaced, it shocked the entire coin collecting world by being worth nearly $1 million. At first glance, the 1968 D Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. A brown cent, worn by time, nothing flashy, nothing unusual. But hidden beneath its humble surface lies a secret that only a handful of collectors know, a secret that has transformed this penny from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Collectors call it one of the most overlooked rarities in U.S. history. Most people who see it spend it without hesitation. Yet, in the right condition, this penny has sold for staggering amounts, some reaching well over $1 million. But how could a single penny from 1968, a year when millions rolled out of the Denver Mint, become so valuable? The answer begins with mistakes, tiny, almost invisible flaws created during minting that turned certain 1968 D pennies into legends. Some were struck off-center, others doubled during the stamping process, and a rare few were minted with sharp, proof-like qualities that should never have left Denver. These aren't the coins you stumble on every day. These are the coins collectors dream about finding, the ones worth fortunes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, an ordinary man with a lifelong habit of checking his change, found a 1968 D penny that looked different. The date shimmered in a strange way, the letters seemed doubled, and the luster was unusually sharp. He held onto it, unsure if it was special, until one day he brought it to a dealer. That single moment changed his life forever. The dealer's hands trembled as he studied it under magnification. The doubling was undeniable. The strike was crisp, almost proof-like, with razor-sharp details. This was no ordinary penny. It was one of the rarest varieties of the 1968 D series. When it went to auction, it ignited a bidding war that shocked collectors worldwide. By the time the hammer dropped, that tiny cent had sold for close to $1 million, but here's the chilling part: there are still more out there. Most people don't even know what to look for. They toss these pennies aside, thinking they're just another dull cent. But those who pay attention, those who check carefully, can uncover what others miss. Dealers are rushing to grab any high-grade 1968 D pennies they can find, terrified of missing the next $1 million discovery. And here's the detail that makes all the difference: many of the valuable 1968 D pennies have errors so subtle, the untrained eye almost always overlooks them. Doubling on the letters in Liberty. A faint doubling in the date 1968. A misaligned strike that leaves Lincoln's profile shifted ever so slightly. And the rarest of all, the proof-like finish coins, struck by mistake, with mirror-like fields that gleam unlike anything you'd expect from the Denver Mint. But this story has another twist. Back in the late 1960s, the Mint was struggling with production issues. Machines were breaking down, dies were wearing out, and mistakes slipped through the cracks. Those mistakes became today's treasures. Imagine it: a frustrated worker in Denver, trying to keep the presses moving, unknowingly created a coin that decades later would change someone's life forever. And yet, most collectors still don't realize just how valuable this penny can be. They look at 1968 D cents and think common. But the truth is, in the right condition, with the right error, this little coin can be worth over $1 million. Think about that. A penny that could buy a house. A penny that could erase debt. A penny that could transform your future. But what makes it even more fascinating is the rarity of condition. Ordinary 1968 D pennies in circulated shape are worth just 1 cent. But in gem mint state, graded MS67 or higher, the price skyrockets. Add an error, like a double die or off-center strike, and you've got a coin that dealers will fight over, collectors will chase, and auctions will explode with bidding wars. And here's the part that should keep you on the edge of your seat: most of these valuable coins are still hiding. In jars of change, in dusty drawers, in forgotten piggy banks. Every day, someone spends one without knowing. Every day, another chance at $1 million penny slips through the cracks. Look closely. Hold the coin under a strong light. Study the word Liberty. If the letters look doubled, you may have struck gold. Check the date 1968 for signs of doubling or unusual thickness. Examine Lincoln's profile for misalignment. And if the coin has an unusually sharp, mirror-like shine, you may be holding a proof-like strike that should never have left Denver. But here's the most important tip: condition is everything. A worn coin may still carry value, but a pristine, mint-state penny can be worth life-changing money. That's why collectors search tirelessly, sending their finds to grading services, praying for that MS67 or higher grade. 1 coin, 1 grade, 1 mistake at the mint. That's all it takes to turn a penny into $1 million miracle. And remember, history is full of these stories. An ordinary person, just like you, checks their change and suddenly their life is never the same. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore those 1968 D pennies. Don't toss them in a jar without looking. Because one of them could be the key to your future. And here's the truth that should make your heart race: